My hands had never felt like my own. They were instruments of shame, cursed to bleed for others while leaving me hollow inside. The boy lay before me on the stone floor, his breath shallow, lips tinged blue. His mother's sobs filled the small hut, sharp and desperate, cutting through the damp air. I pressed my trembling palm against the boy's chest, feeling the fragile flutter of his heart. My veins burned as I whispered the words I had been taught in secret, words that tasted of iron and ash. The knife was already in my hand. I hated the ritual, hated the way the villagers' eyes widened when the blade kissed my skin. But I did it anyway. A thin line opened across my wrist, and my blood, dark, reluctant, spilled into the boy's mouth. The magic surged like fire through me, draining, devouring. His body arched, a gasp tearing from his throat as color returned to his cheeks. Relief swept the room, but it did not touch me. I was left shaking, hollow, my vision blurred. The mother fell to her knees, clutching her son, whispering thanks that sounded more like prayers. Yet, when her gaze lifted to me, gratitude curdled into fear. She bowed her head, as if I were something unholy, and pulled the boy away from my reach. It was always the same. They needed me, but they did not want me. My blood saved them, but it marked me as something unnatural. I could feel their whispers clinging to me like smoke. Witch, cursed, dangerous. I wrapped the cloth around my wrist, hiding the wound, though the ache lingered. My body felt drained, as though each act of healing carved away another piece of me. I longed, oh, how I longed, for a life where my hands were ordinary, where I could touch without fear, where my blood was mine alone. To be normal, to be loved without suspicion, to rest without the weight of their eyes. Outside, the ash forest loomed, its skeletal branches clawing at the grey sky. The air smelled of damp earth and smoke from distant hearths. Villagers passed me on the path, their gazes sliding away, their steps quickening. They would not meet my eyes, though I had just saved one of their children. Their silence was heavier than words. Rumours drifted through the village like frost. Whispers of King Caius Valoran, the cursed ruler of the northern lands. They said his breath carried winter, that his touch could rot flesh, that he fed on the loyalty of those too afraid to resist. Some claimed he was searching for healers, binding them to his service, draining them until nothing remained but husks. Others swore he sought a cure for his own affliction, and that those who failed him vanished into the castle's candle-lit halls, never to return. I listened, though I pretended not to. Each rumour was a thread of dread woven into my chest. I prayed the king's gaze would never fall on me. Yet, in the quiet of my nights, when the candle burned low and shadows pressed against the walls, another wish stirred beneath the fear. To be seen, truly seen, not as a monster or a tool, but as a woman. To be held without trembling, to belong somewhere beyond the cold. The day stretched thin, the sky bruised with twilight. I sat alone near the edge of the forest, the wind biting at my cheeks, the scent of pine and ash sharp in the air. My hands would not stop shaking. I pressed them together as if I could hold myself steady. But the tremor was inside me, deeper than flesh. Then came the sound, hooves against frozen earth. The rhythm was steady, deliberate, echoing through the village like a heartbeat. Doors creaked shut, voices hushed. I rose slowly, my breath caught in my throat. Soldiers. The air thickened, heavy with anticipation. My pulse thundered in my ears. Each step of their boots seemed to stretch time, the world narrowing to the cadence of their approach. The villagers gathered at a distance, eyes wide, bodies tense. I felt their stares pressing against me, as though they already knew who the soldiers had come for. The captain stopped before me, his armor glinting in the fading light. His voice was low, commanding, a blade drawn across silence. "Ilara Thorn," he said, "step forward." The road to the castle was longer than I had imagined, though perhaps it was not the distance that made it feel endless, but the silence. The soldiers rode ahead, their armor clinking faintly, their faces unreadable beneath the shadows of their helms. I walked among the other chosen, our steps muffled against the frozen earth. The air was sharp, biting at my lungs, and every breath carried the taste of ash drifting from the forests. No one spoke. Fear had stolen our voices, leaving only the sound of boots and hooves, the occasional creak of leather, the faint hiss of wind through skeletal branches. I kept my eyes on the ground, though I could feel the weight of the villagers' stares as we passed. They did not call out, did not wave farewell. They only watched, as if witnessing a funeral procession. My body felt heavy, my thoughts dulled. Survival demanded numbness, and so I let myself sink into it, one step at a time, until the castle's silhouette rose against the horizon. It was vast, carved from pale stone that seemed to glow beneath the dying light. Towers pierced the sky, their tips lost in mist. Yet the beauty of it was cold, lifeless, as though the castle itself had been built to keep warmth away. My stomach knotted tighter with each step closer. We were not led through the grand gates, but through a narrow side passage that smelled of damp stone and rusted iron. Torches sputtered along the walls, their flames bending as if reluctant to burn here. The air grew colder, heavier, until it pressed against my skin like a shroud. Inside, the cruelty began. "Strip," a voice commanded. A woman with sharp features and eyes like polished steel stood before us. Her tone carried no room for hesitation. I froze, shame burning through me, but the others obeyed, fumbling with their garments, shivering as they bared themselves to the cold. My fingers felt clumsy, unwilling, but I forced them to move. Cloth fell away, leaving me exposed beneath the torchlight. The stone floor was icy against my feet, and I could not stop the tremor that ran through me. We were herded into another chamber, where buckets of water waited. The first splash struck like knives, so cold it stole the breath from my lungs. Rough hands seized me, scrubbing my skin with coarse cloth until it burned raw. My hair was pulled, combed with cruel precision, each tangle ripped free without care. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, refusing to cry out. The woman watched, her lips curved in something between disdain and amusement. "The king will not have filth in his halls," she said. "You are property now. Remember that." Her words sank deep, heavier than the water, heavier than the stone walls around me. My life is no longer mine. The thought echoed, hollow, final. When the washing was done, we were given plain shifts of rough grey cloth. They scratched against my raw skin, clinging damply. The soldiers inspected us, their gazes impersonal, as though we were livestock. One lifted my chin with the edge of his gauntlet, studying me as if searching for flaws. I kept my eyes lowered, my breath shallow. Lady Vesper Rowan appeared then, her presence commanding the room. Draped in velvet the colour of midnight, her eyes gleamed with cold amusement. She moved among us with deliberate grace, her fingers trailing across shoulders, tilting faces toward the light. When she reached me, Her touch lingered, nails grazing my jaw. "This one," she murmured, her voice soft but edged with cruelty. "She looks fragile. The king favors fragility, breaks more beautifully." I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to flinch. Her smile was sharp, satisfied, before she moved on. We were lectured on rules, each one spoken with the weight of threat. Where we could walk, whom we could speak to, the punishments for disobedience. One rule was repeated with particular emphasis: never open a door after sundown. The warning hung in the air, heavy with unspoken menace. None of us dared ask why. The chamber smelled of wet stone and smoke, the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows across the walls. Silence pressed down, broken only by the scrape of boots and the rustle of cloth. My body ached, my skin stung. But worse was the emptiness inside me, the hollow where hope had once lived. At last, the steel-eyed woman returned, her gaze sweeping over us with cold satisfaction. She stopped before me, her voice low, final. "You are being prepared for the king." The corridor swallowed me whole, its walls of stone pressing close, its silence heavier than chains. Torches sputtered along the way, their flames bending as if recoiling from what lay ahead. My bare feet whispered against the cold floor, each step echoing too loudly in the emptiness. The servant's hand on my arm was firm, unyielding, guiding me toward a door carved from black oak. The door opened without sound, and I was led into a chamber vast enough to make me feel small, insignificant. Shadows clung to the corners, though candles burned in tall iron holders, their light flickering against walls etched with ancient runes. The air was colder here, sharp with the scent of wax and stone, yet beneath it lingered something darker, like smoke that had seeped into the bones of the castle itself. At the far end of the chamber, upon a throne wrought from iron and ashwood, sat King Caius Valoran. I had heard whispers of him all my life, but no rumor had prepared me for the sight. He was not merely a man, he was a presence, vast and consuming. His frame was broad, his posture deceptively relaxed, yet every line of him radiated danger. His hair was dark as midnight, falling in loose waves that caught the candlelight. But it was his eyes that held me captive. They were not simply eyes, they were storms, ancient and unreadable, carrying centuries of silence and sorrow. The chamber stilled around him. Even the air seemed reluctant to move. My breath caught, shallow, as though the very act of breathing in his presence was a trespass. I lowered my gaze, but it was too late. His attention had already found me. I felt it like a weight pressing against my chest, a tether pulling me closer, though I stood frozen. My heart hammered, each beat loud enough to betray me. The servant released my arm and stepped back, leaving me alone in the vastness. I wanted to shrink, to vanish, but my body betrayed me. My magic stirred, unbidden. A warmth spread beneath my skin, subtle yet undeniable, as if my blood recognized him. It stung faintly, a hum threading through my veins, and I clenched my fist to hide the tremor. He did not speak at first, he only watched. The silence stretched, unbearable, until it became a living thing between us. I dared a glance upward, and our eyes met. Stillness. His gaze was not cruel, nor kind. It was something older, something that stripped me bare without touch. My throat tightened, my breath faltered. I wanted to look away, but I could not. The world narrowed to the space between us, to the sound of my own heartbeat, to the faint hum of magic that pulsed in response to him. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, resonant, carrying the weight of command without effort. "You are the healer." The words were not a question. They were truth, spoken with quiet authority. I swallowed, my lips parting, but no sound came. Fear held me silent, yet beneath it, something else stirred. An unexplainable pull, a thread binding me to him. He leaned forward slightly, the movement subtle yet immense. Shadows shifted across his face, deepening the sharp lines of his cheekbones, the curve of his mouth. His presence filled the chamber, pressing against me until I felt I might break beneath it. My magic flared again. A sting at the edge of my wound, a warmth that spread through my chest. I pressed my hand against the cloth, wrapped around my wrist, as if I could contain it, hide it. But it was there, undeniable, answering him in ways I did not understand. He said nothing more for a long moment. The silence was suffocating. Yet I could not escape it. His eyes held mine, and in them I saw not just danger, but something deeper. Loneliness, perhaps, or hunger. It unsettled me, made me ache in ways I could not name. The servant shifted nervously at the edge of the chamber, waiting. But the king did not look at him. His gaze remained fixed on me, steady, unyielding. Finally, with quiet finality, he spoke. "She stays." The chamber they gave me was not far from his. I knew it the moment the door closed behind me, the silence pressing in like a secret. The corridor outside was hushed, candlelight flickering against stone, but beneath that quiet lay something heavier, an awareness that he was near, too near. The room itself was bare, a narrow bed, a basin of water, a single candle guttering in the draught. The walls smelled faintly of damp stone and iron. I sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping my arms around myself, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. My body still ached from the journey, from the washing, from the endless inspections. Yet, it was not exhaustion that kept me awake. It was him. When night fell, the castle changed. The silence deepened, broken only by sounds that did not belong to any human realm. At first it was pacing, slow, deliberate steps echoing through the corridor. Then came the scraping, claws against stone, a sound that made my skin prickle. A low growl followed, rumbling through the walls, vibrating in my chest. I pressed my hand against my heart, as if I could quiet its frantic rhythm. Whispers drifted through the cracks of the door, too faint to understand, yet heavy with intent. They curled around me like smoke, seeping into my thoughts. I pulled the blanket tighter, but it did not keep the chill away. Fear coiled inside me, sharp and insistent. Yet beneath it, something else stirred. Curiosity. I should have hidden, should have prayed for silence. But instead, I found myself leaning closer to the door, straining to hear. My breath fogged in the cold air, my pulse loud in my ears. Each sound from his chamber drew me nearer, as though my body betrayed me, as though my blood itself wanted to answer. The growls subsided, replaced by a rhythm of breath, deep, uneven, almost pained. I closed my eyes, listening, and for a moment, it felt as though I could sense him beyond the wall. Not the king seated on his throne, but something raw, something broken. The thought unsettled me, yet it rooted me in place. I rose, bare feet against the cold stone, and crossed the small room. My hand hovered over the door, trembling. I knew the warning. Never open a door after sundown. The words had been spoken with such weight that they echoed now, louder than my own heartbeat. Still I pressed my palm against the wood, feeling the faint vibration of movement beyond. The air shifted. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. I froze, breath caught in my throat. Then, slowly, deliberately, the sound of footsteps approached. Each step was measured, dragging against stone until they stopped directly on the other side of my door. I could not move. My body was rigid, my hand still pressed against the wood. The warmth of my magic stirred again, humming faintly beneath my skin, answering something I could not name. The silence stretched, unbearable. I felt him there, waiting, listening. My lips parted, though no words came. Fear and longing tangled inside me, sharp and confusing. Then, through the door, his voice came, low, intimate, closer than breath. Ilara, my name, spoken like a secret, like a claim. The sound of it pierced me, shocking, unsettling, yet it filled me with a heat I could not deny. I staggered back, heart racing, but the echo of his voice lingered, wrapping around me like a tether. I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down until I sat on the cold floor, trembling. My life was no longer mine. And yet, in that moment, I knew. Neither was my heart. The chamber was dim, lit only by a few candles that guttered against the draught. I had been summoned, though no one explained why. My steps echoed faintly as I entered, the air thick with silence. He was there, King Caius Valorin, not in the monstrous form I had sensed through the walls, but human again. He sat slouched in a chair near the hearth, though the fire was little more than embers. His posture was not regal, not commanding, but weary. Shadows clung to him, deepening the hollows beneath his eyes. His hand rested against his side, and I saw the dark stain spreading across the fabric. Blood. I froze, unsure if I should move closer. My instincts screamed to keep my distance. But something else, something quieter, more dangerous, pulled me forward. You wonder why healers are taken, he said, his voice low, roughened by pain. He did not look at me, only at the fire. It is because of this. He shifted, and the wound revealed itself, a jagged tear across his ribs, the flesh beneath bruised and torn. My breath caught. You're hurt. His gaze lifted then, and the weight of it pinned me in place. I am cursed, he said simply. The wound never closes. It festers. It spreads. Without blood magic, I would have rotted long ago. The words struck me harder than I expected. The rumors had painted him as a monster who devoured healers, but here he was, bleeding, broken, admitting the truth. My hands trembled as I stepped closer, drawn against my will. He watched me, silent, as though testing whether I would flee. But I did not. I knelt beside him, the cold stone biting into my knees, and reached for the cloth at his side. My fingers brushed his skin as I pressed against the wound. Heat flared beneath my touch, not just from the blood, but from something deeper. My magic stirring, answering him. He inhaled sharply, the sound more intimate than any word. I should not let you near, he murmured. Every healer who touches me pays a price. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. And yet, you called me. His lips curved faintly, though it was not a smile. Because you are different. I felt it the moment I saw you. Your blood does not recoil from mine. The cloth was soaked, useless. I tore a strip from my own sleeve, pressing it firmly against the wound. My hand trembled, but I did not pull away. His body was close, his breath warm against my hair. The proximity was unbearable, yet I could not move. Does it hurt? I whispered. Always, he said. His voice was quiet, stripped of command. Pain is the only constant. It is why I keep healers here. Their blood slows the rot. But it never ends. Never. The confession hung between us, heavy, raw. I felt the sting of my own wound reopening, the faint hum of magic threading through my veins. It wanted to answer him, to pour itself into his broken flesh. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge. His hand lifted, slow, deliberate, and closed around my wrist. Not to restrain, but to steady. His touch was warm, calloused, and it sent a shiver through me. My breath faltered, my heart stumbling against my ribs. "You should fear me," he said softly, "yet you do not." "I do," I whispered back, "but not enough to leave." The silence that followed was unbearable. His eyes held mine, ancient and unreadable, yet beneath them flickered something fragile. Loneliness, perhaps, or longing. My pulse raced, my lips parted, and for a moment the world narrowed to the space between us. It felt as though something might happen, something forbidden, something that would undo me entirely. His gaze dropped to my mouth, and my breath caught. The air between us burned, fragile, dangerous. But he did not move closer. His hand lingered on my wrist, his wound pressed beneath my palm, and the moment stretched until it broke beneath its own weight. I pulled back slightly, trembling, torn between relief and disappointment. Doubt tangled with fear, longing with shame. I wanted to flee, yet I wanted to stay. I wanted to hate him, yet I wanted to understand him. My life was no longer mine, and perhaps neither was my heart. The castle was quieter than I had ever known it. The corridors hushed, the torches burning low as though reluctant to disturb the silence. I walked slowly, my bare feet brushing against the cold stone, the weight of the night pressing down on me. Every step carried me closer to him, though I did not know why I moved at all. I could have turned away, could have fled back to the chamber they had given me, but something inside me refused. He was waiting in the great hall, though not upon the throne. Instead, he stood near the tall windows, the moonlight spilling across his shoulders, silvering the dark strands of his hair. His posture was rigid, yet there was something fragile in the way he held himself, as though the weight of centuries had bent him but not broken him. When his eyes found mine, the world stilled. "Ilara," he said, my name spoken with quiet certainty. It was not command, not possession, but something else, something unspoken, something I could not name. I stopped a few paces away, my breath shallow, my heart stumbling. Fear lingered, sharp and insistent, but beneath it was a pull I could not deny. My blood hummed faintly, answering him, betraying me. "You should leave," he said, though his voice faltered on the words. "Others have tried. Some fled, some begged, none stayed." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "And yet you keep me here." His gaze did not waver. "Not as property, not as a tool. You are different." The words struck me, heavy with meaning. I wanted to deny them, to insist that I was no different from the others, that I was only a healer cursed with blood that burned. But the truth was there, in the way my magic stirred when he spoke, in the way my heart ached when his eyes lingered. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until the space between us narrowed to a breath. His presence was overwhelming, dangerous, yet I did not retreat. My body trembled, but I held my ground. "You should fear me," he whispered. "You should hate me." "I do," I said softly, "but not enough to leave." The silence that followed was unbearable, yet it was also fragile, tender. His hand lifted, hesitant, and brushed against mine. The touch was fleeting, restrained, but it sent a shiver through me. My fingers curled instinctively, answering his. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered the warnings, the curse, the danger. But I did not. Something inside me, something deeper than fear, kept me there. He exhaled slowly, the sound heavy with centuries of sorrow. Then you will stay. The words were not command, not decree. They were choice. His choice and mine. I nodded, though my throat ached with the weight of it. I will stay. Not because I was controlled, not because I was trapped, but because something inside me could not leave. The air shifted, softer now, as though the castle itself recognized the vow. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing against mine, the contact gentle, restrained. His breath mingled with mine, warm against the cold night. My eyes closed, and for a moment, the world fell away, leaving only the fragile tether between us. His hand lingered against mine, fingers brushing, hesitant yet certain. The moment was intimate, haunting, filled with longing that could not be resolved. I knew the danger, I knew the curse, I knew the cost. Yet I also knew that I could not turn away. His voice was low, almost a vow, spoken against the silence. Then let it be so. And in that moment, with his forehead pressed to mine, with our breath shared in the cold air, I understood. Love could be both wound and balm, curse and salvation. It was bittersweet, fragile, unresolved. Yet it was ours, and it would haunt me forever. Thank you for listening. Another story will find you soon. With love, Claire.